Greetings, everyone. This is Umby, and we're back with some more coverage for the VGC Draft League. We're in week number 3, and I just finished my match with Keystone Records, and we got a lot to talk about for this particular matchup. First off, there was a trade, so the Alolan Persian is gone in favor of Vivillon here in Tier 3. The idea being, with Rage Powder, it gets to draw away some of the ground moves that are typically aimed at the Heatran, Sandy Shocks, or Iron Thorns, and gives them some room to launch an attack of their own. We'll get into that a little bit later, though. So, just to focus on what Keystone Records brings to the table. Um, if you saw my recent rankings video of our group's teams, I ranked them number 2, and I think it makes a strong case for it if you look at the higher tiers. Enamorous-T, Hisuian Goodra, Volcarona, and Wo-Chien. Just the type diversity and raw stats of these Pokemon make them incredibly bulky and hard to just rip through, made even further tougher by the Tablets of Ruin ability by Wo-Chien. So I'm having to rely a lot on my special attacks to get through them, which are kind of limited. So if they use the right tear at the right time, I could be stifled. Meanwhile, my physical attackers are suffering because of that one ability. You also have a pretty significant offense being offered from Enamorous-T and the Volcarona to go along with that bulk. So it's similar to what I'm doing, where I'm trying to use type coverage and bulky Pokemon while still launching a pretty strong offensive. So soak up a hit, do more damage to the opponent. It's kind of the general idea there. But I think this one is a little bit more dangerous than mine, in my opinion. But they're also supported by Raichu, which just in general is a really good support Pokemon in draft leagues. It's a pretty fast fake out user and also has access to things like Nuzzle, Eerie Impulse, Charm, a few other things like screens if you really want to go into it. So slap a focus sash on it and it can do a lot of things in one turn that can make an impact that lasts for the next few turns there. Furthermore, if you put it next to the Hisuian Samurai, I then may have a hard time trying to hit it effectively with my electric Pokemon. Granted, I do have Rillaboom and grass type moves from the Hisuian Electrode to hit into that slot, but if the primary directive is use electric type move, Raichu helps a lot with that, and still just being faster than most of my Pokemon helps it support its team members a lot more effectively. Now, this is Keystone Records we're talking about, so even though that's the high end of their draft, they tend to use like some of their lower tier picks a little bit more often than other trainers. So I was kind of looking out for something like either Reverum or Palisand to come along. So a little bit of my prep went to that, which we'll see here. Really, it's just one Pokemon. I'll just call it out real quickly. It's the Rillaboom, using the Stomping Tantrum, just in case that, or even just in case the Reverum or even Toxicroak shows up. I wanted to make sure that I had Stomping Tantrum. I even had like Terra Poison to kind of survive, like a sludge, like a not sludge, Gunk Shot or Poison Jab, but whatever it is that those two Pokemon use as stat poison types there. But the rest of the team that I played with is not too far out there. Like the wackiest set is the Loaded Dice Iron Thorns, which just came at a recommendation, primarily because of Pin Missile. Like I'm using Rock Blast as well, just to take advantage of the Loaded Dice, but the Pin Missile is the focus here. So you'll notice that they have Wo-Chien, Samurott, and the Rabsca, all which are naturally weak to Bug. Now, the Samurott, of course, weak to the Wild Charge as well, naturally, but like I mentioned before, Raichu is something that could show up and stifle those efforts. Rabsca, not really much of a factor because it's weak to Rock as well, but you see where I'm going. We got some general coverage through Pin Missile going to those Pokemon, but Wo-Chien as well, being 4 times weak to Bug, with Iron Thorns being a physical Pokemon that could draw in the Wo-Chien to defend against it, and then if they're not careful enough, they could get cleared by the Loaded Dice Pin Missile from there, giving more room for Rillaboom and Gyarados to work their magic through the rest of the team. Also carrying Sandy Shocks with the Screech, just to help further those efforts. So Gyarados, you see with the Protect, 3 moves, nothing like a Life Orb or a Choice Band, just running Citrus Berry. Needs a little bit of a help to get some more damage down the field. I decided I could try and do that with the Screech from the Sandy Shocks, but also because we're a little bit focused on stopping Shelter Goodra. This not only lowers their defense for me to hit harder with my physical Pokemon, but if they are going to shelter Body Press moveset, of course they will do less damage with Body Press since it works based off of their defense stat. Heatran with Life Orb, decide we're going hard in the paint with that one this time. It has a really high special attack stat, and again, we have to work around that Tablets of Ruin ability that is more than likely coming, and potentially the shelter if it's already up. So this is our best bet, our strongest special attacker with the coverage moves to hit everybody with it. Going Terra Bug, normally you see the Terra Grass to defend against ground type moves. Bug can do the same thing, but it also leaves me less exposed to something like Body Press if I haven't been able to stop that from getting set up. And also I'm not weak to like the poison types that could show up, like I would be if I used Terra Grass, just as an example. Last but not least, we have the Vivillon with the Focus Sash, Terra Poison, Friend Guard, nothing again too out of the ordinary. But we just talked about the bug weaknesses that some of Keystone Records Pokemon has. So the Pollen Puff not only can support my own Pokemon, but also gets to damage them effectively as well. So again, if they're not careful, Wo-Chien, 4x weak to bug, could get cleared from a certain range, especially since we're attacking from the special side. And Hisuian Samurott, without any boost or Assault Vest, gets one hit KO'd by it as well, running the max special attack, which we are, max special attack 10. We also get to move ahead of it because we're at base 89 speed versus its base 85. So yeah, that's kind of the attack plan. Using our special Pokemon when we can, and then augmenting our physical attacking Pokemon using the Screech ability. So I'll show you how the matches went from there. So for game number 1, the heaviest hitters did arrive on Keystone Records side, and fortunately, the Raichu did not show up, but the Revavroom, kind of like what I was expecting, did show up. So we do have a little bit of prep for that and have a little bit of an advantage. But Enamorous-T, Hisuian Goodra, Hisuian Samurott, Volcarona, Wo-Chien, and Revavroom is going to be the choice for my opponent here. We're going to use this first game to kind of feel everything out, so I do apologize. There's going to be a little bit of a slog here. But I lead with the Vivillon and Heatran to get some momentum. They lead Revavroom and Samurott. They're immediately going to retreat the Revavroom, probably scared of a potential Terra Grass, a Heat Wave there, in favor of the Hisuian Goodra. I show the Pollen Puff, first turn in. Not enough for a KO on the Samurott there. Should have realized that at that point it was a Assault Vest. I had forgotten my calcs at that point, so didn't really pick up on that. Might have been helpful to know ahead of time. But they're going to go ahead and retreat into the Revavroom to take that Pollen Puff. I was hoping they fell asleep at the wheel, but a little bit too helpful. That allows them to get the Revavroom in position and allows the Goodra to fire off a pretty strong Draco Meteor. Puts me into Citrus Berry range on my Gyarados that I just switched in. I'm going to go ahead and heal back to full health with the Pollen Puff from my Vivillon, though. Wo-Chien's entered the field for the first time here, and we see the Parting Shot for the first time from the Revavroom, going back into that Hisuian Goodra. Try to get some neutral damage on it. Wasn't expecting the Parting Shot, so the Waterfall does fail to hit the mark. Finds out that the Goodra does have Gooey, though. That may be an issue later on. Reset our stat stages. We're going to switch out into the Rillaboom here. I'm going to use the Struggle Bug just to cover anything that might have come in on the on Keystone Records' side. I could have possibly gotten a little bit more aggressive there and gone for the Pollen Puff instead. I just wanted to, again, feel things out. And for my efforts, the Wo-Chien's still at full health, and my Vivillon has gone down to Focus Sash reveal hit. But Rillaboom is in play, gets to defend against the Leech Seed, and now I get to bring my Heatran in play. Unfortunately, during this next turn, even though the Wo-Chien gets to protect and I get a free attack into the Samurott that comes in, wasn't enough to grab the KO, which would have put the Heatran in spectacular position to launch an offense and possibly get this Wo-Chien off the field that's holding back my Rillaboom. They're going to preserve their efforts, though. Switch in the Revavroom as I switch in my Gyarados into the Heatran slot. Finally use Wood Hammer on my Rillaboom to go ahead and knock out the Samurott there. So it's finally get one KO on the board. My Vivillon is knocking on death's door, though, so a trade may be inevitable here. They finally bring back the Wo-Chien. I try and get my Heatran into position here. Versus Heatran versus Wo-Chien and Revavroom seems like a pretty good spot, but it's pretty slippery with that Parting Shot, so they escape back into the Hisuian Goodra, making things a little bit sticky. Now, at this point, I'm frantically looking around trying to see what water type moves Goodra has because I honestly forgotten. Managed to skip over Hydro Pump in my search, so it gets a free pickup right here, which is very crucial because Heatran is kind of a win condition right now. Even further unfortunate because the Wo-Chien, of course, protects, trying to scout out that Heatran and make sure it gets the KO with the Hydro Pump. So now I'm forced to bring in Rillaboom and Gyarados, which makes for a sticky situation because the Tablets of Ruin are at work, reducing the damage that I can do. Kind of forced to go into Terrifying Terra Blast here just to get some damage on the board onto this Wo-Chien. I'm trying to call out a Terra Fire from the Wo-Chien. We do trade team sheets here as far as Terras go. So I want to cover that with Terra Flying and the Stomping Tantrum. Of course, I'm not really doing anything super effective with the Rillaboom right now, so I figured that's all I can really do. At least see the Gyarados get a ton of recovery thanks to the grassy terrain leftovers and Leech Seed. So I decided to get the Gyarados out because we know there's a Protect coming in next turn. I managed to get the Vivillon in safely as a result. Trying to do something before it goes down, hoping they fell asleep at the wheel. Hoping again, too hopeful. Go for a Pollen Puff and get met with the Hisuian Goodra. So now they get a free pickup, and it is looking pretty dire here. I do manage to pick up the River Room with a Stomping Tantrum, but 2v2 and Keystone Records is pretty much at advantage here. Rillaboom, Gyarados versus Wo-Chien and Hisuian Goodra. I have to reserve my efforts of Stomping Tantrum towards the Goodra. Finally, the Terra Fire for the Wo-Chien does come out here. What ends up happening, not only am I getting my speed reduced by Goodra, which will make doubling up into one of these Pokemon pretty hard, the Wo-Chien is content just to Pollen Puff away, keep this Goodra topped off while it launches these very effective special attacks into me. We see the Dragon Pulse aimed into the Gyarados, finds the Protect here. But yeah, we're already on turn 13. We're going to have a few more as the cycle just repeats. Now, I'm trying to call out Protect from the Wo-Chien, of course, but I'm pretty sure they were just confident, even with the double up from Stab, Waterfall, and Stomping Tantrum, they were just going to always live that. That gives it enough time to Pollen Puff their Goodra, who I can't KO sufficiently as well, thanks to not having really any effective moves outside of Stomping Tantrum here. So they just hammer away with Dragon Pulse, and until the deed is done. So the win goes to Keystone Records here in this first game, and we'll have to make up for it in game number 2. So because that's such a long game, we got to feel out what it is that they were trying to go for, some of the items that they do have. Kind of expect that the Goodra is Specs and that the Samurott is an Assault Vest, or we should have expected it was an Assault Vest at the time. So we're gonna mix things up here with Sandy Shocks and Gyarados leading into the team. They decided to mix things up with Enamorous and Volcarona. Immediately using Terra Ghost, I guess to try and prevent a knockout from the Waterfall. They go for the Rage Powder and show off Calm Mind for their Enamorous. My Sandy Shocks, though, gets to use Screech, and Gyarados still gets to do a ton of damage into that Volcarona here. Just to avoid the Rage Powder and the impending Earth Power we're expecting from the Enamorous, go ahead and Terra Grass on my Sandy Shocks and go for a Thunderbolt onto the Enamorous there. They go for another Rage Powder where Gyarados gets to pick up with the Waterfall, and now they have to bring in their Wo-Chien. Just to scout things out, I'm going to go ahead and Protect with the Sandy Shocks here, see what the Wo-Chien wants to do. But this is also a really great position for my Heatran to come in, because they're not trying to launch Earth Power into a Gyarados, and in any other moves they could launch are not going to be too effective versus the Heatran. So I get to Thunderbolt again, clearing the Enamorous off the field. That leaves the Wo-Chien to take a single targeted Heat Wave and clear it off the field as well. Only a lonely Goodra versus the rest of my squad. Gonna go ahead and move on to game number 3 here. All right, this one's for all the marbles. And we're just gonna go ahead and start Sandy Shocks again. It worked so well for us last time, but so did Heatran near the end of the game. So we're just gonna lead our front end and our back end at the same time and try and get an explosive start. They lead the Revavroom and the Hisuian Goodra here. They're going to have to immediately leave for the Wo-Chien. Still may have been an ill-advised. I go for a Terra Bug on the Heatran just to cover for if they want to go for a Hydro Pump into Heatran again, but also protect the Sandy Shocks. Just some double safeguards here. And I get the best out of the deal as the Goodra not only taking a burn from the Heat Wave and the Wo-Chien as well going low from the move as well, but also a Draco Meteor was aimed at the Sandy Shocks, which I get to defend successfully, and that allows me to pick up cleanly with the Earth Power in the following turn. Wo-Chien, now fighting for his life, has to protect going into the next turn, and we see the Reverend coming back in. Goes for Terra Flying, which we did see on the Terra sheet. Figure we can effectively cover that, just go Thunderbolt, it's perfectly fine, and follow up with a Heat Wave. They are going to Parting Shot. They Parting Shot the Sandy Shocks, so my Heatran is still at full power here. Life Orb Heat Wave takes down the Wo-Chien, misses the Samurott, unfortunately, but I'm still pretty well safeguarded since I'm no longer weak to Liquidation, nor am I weak to any other moves they might have here. All they have left to work with is the Samurott and the Revavroom. Additional safeguards are bringing the Gyarados to get the Intimidate down and take the Aqua Cutter there. The Revavroom goes for a Parting Shot into the Heatran, which does reduce the power significantly enough to save the Samurott from Terra Blast Bug, my secret weapon here. Ceaseless Edge going to the Heatran, may not have picked up for a KO, but unfortunately misses. Go for another Heat Wave just for maximum coverage there. Right? And we follow up with Waterfall to finally take down the Revavroom. Right? And there, the writing's on the wall. 1v4, only at 2% health. Not able to pick up a knockout. The Lonely Samurai goes down to the Flash Cannon from Heatran. Right? Good games. Definitely fun stuff. Like, I do enjoy it when I can kind of pivot around, try and work my way through to my win condition. So the first game was definitely fun. Kind of found my second win and was able to kind of breeze into games 2 and 3 with some of my options. But I did still have to make the right calls with my Terra to kind of get over some of these humps and defend correctly. So I was glad I was able to do that. Again, really fun stuff. Now this time, my opponent was nice enough to share their full team sheet with me. So you have it on your screen here. Did confirm the Assault Vest on the Samurai. Did confirm the choice specs on the Hisuian Goodra. I know we talk a lot about the Shelter Body Press moveset, but we can't forget that its special attack is actually serviceable. With it being like kind of this bulky juggernaut, it doesn't make the least amount of sense to run a special attacking set. Even more so, running the choice specs could end up being dangerous as well. A little bit of respect to the Rage Powder Volcarona next to the Calm Mind Enamorous. You even see the safety goggles just to avoid any shenanigans that my Vivillon might be pulling off there. Along with Terra Grass on the Samurai, like I mentioned before, was one of the things that we were trying to kind of prep for. Wo-Chien annoying as per usual, and then a little bit of a monkey wrench. The Revavroom it ended up being less effective than I suppose they were planning, but in game 1, just the way that I was trying to find my win condition through the Heatran, and that condition was essentially just put it in front of Revavroom and Wo-Chien, and it just kept pivoting out before I could get in position. I think that was well played out, but ultimately it gave me an out through positioning, just to put things like the Sandy Shocks and the Heatran in play, which was going to do the most damage into the team always. I wouldn't want to see the Raichu because I'm the one playing against it. But if I were supporting my opponent here, I would have really wanted to see the Raichu, just by virtue of I got a ton of electric Pokemon that want to show up on the team. The Hisuian Electro, the Iron Thorns, the Sandy Shocks. Even if it is weak to the Earth Power, it does get Fake Out to kind of buy yourself a turn, and you can still run it with something like Focus Sash. So you can take at least one Earth Power, then do something supportive from there, whether that's an Eerie Impulse or Charm for the physical attackers, Nuzzle to paralyze something, and now some of your slower Pokemon, even something like the Goodra can move ahead of the other Pokemon without having to rely on Gooey. I think that's the one thing that I would have, quote unquote, liked to have seen from this team. But nonetheless, I had a fun time with this particular matchup. Good games, well played, and good luck in your upcoming weeks for this draft. That's it. That's all from me. So if you did like this content, let me know in the comments below. Leave a like. I always appreciate that. Either way, I'll see you in the next one. Take care.